This is a webinar put on by the College of Professional and Global Education Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Justice Committee. And we're focused on advancing the conversation around issues particularly that involve equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility, and are here for you, for students, faculty, and staff within our academic units to support you on any of these issues and provide programming such as this one for you today. So today we have, the topic is breaking barriers and building bridges, career development of North Korean millennials in South Korea. Dr. Hyewon Park is a senior researcher at the Institute for Educational Research at Yonsei University in South Korea. And at the core of Dr. Park's research is the focus on education as a means for driving social change, particularly for socially and economically marginalized people. And today we'll hear from Dr. Park on this specifics of an ethnographic study that investigated career trajectories of young adult North Korean defectors, NKDs. The study explores the systemic challenges the young adult NKDs confront as first-generation learners in South Korean education systems with a highly competitive education culture. And this research serves to advance our comprehension of the often overlooked obstacles that underrepresented young adult populations encounter while striving to succeed in society and the implications for career counseling and education for first-generation students. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Park. And if anyone has questions, please put them in the chat. And my colleague, Dr. June, will go ahead and be watching the chat for questions.
Hey. Hello, everyone. I'm sharing my screen now. Okay. Yeah, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Hyewon Park, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to speak with you. And I'm a senior researcher in the Institute for Education Research at Yonsei University. Today's topic is young adult North Korean defectors' career development trajectories. This is a subject that I have extensively researched in the past. However, for today's webinar, I would like to focus more on their stories in developing their careers within their daily lives in South Korea, rather than the theoretical perspectives or academic discussions. So let's dive into the fascinating and inspiring career journeys of the young adult North Korean defectors. So before diving into the main topic, I would like to ask you questions. What is the first image that comes to your mind when you hear the words like North Korea or North Korean defectors? Please type your thought on the chat. So it might be diverse, right? So then do you know who North Korean defectors are? So they are ordinary people who live in the North Korea but become South Korean. So as you see on this map, the Korean Peninsula has been divided into two parts for over 70 years, and they are technically at war. So it is very dangerous for Korean people to cross their borderlines. However, because of the border living situations, many North Korean people cross the border between the North and the China. It is relatively easy to cross the border between the North and the China. However, after coming into the China, their life changes very threatening and challenging because China does not accept the North Korean people's refugee status. So they forcibly repatriate North Korean people to the North Korean authorities. Then they face very severe penalties, even death. So it is very, very challenging and dangerous journeys to become a North Korean defectors. However, many people takes that kind of risk and decided to come into the South Korea. So they go through the 30 countries like Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and then come into the South Korea, and then they become South Korean citizen automatically. So as you see on this right chart, there are over 30,000 North Korean defectors in South Korea as of 2022. It is a huge number of migrants in South Korean society. Then what is the problem to North Korean defectors in South Korea now? The first one is the South Korean people's biased perspectives and their negative attitude toward North Korean defectors. As I mentioned before, the Korean Peninsula is technically at war. So for the South Korean people, the males, the military service is mandatory. So when they take the military services, they are trained that their main enemy is North Korean regime, North Korean authorities. And also there are several incidents provoked by North Korean government, and it makes the South Korean people have a hostility toward North Korea. And media reports North Korea's terrible situations like severe famine, nuclear weapons, and human rights issues a lot. So these things influence South Korean people's perception, and they naturally have a doubt and fear about the people from the North. So actually, when I share my research topic with my South Korean friends, they told me you should be careful because they could be spies from the North Korean author. So, and also many discussions about North Korean defectors in South Korea focus on their challenges and seeing them as a kind of a passive object to be adjusted to South Korean society. So they put the North Korean defectors into the problem label. The second one is the demographic transition. Recently, 20s and 30s constitute a majority of North Korean defectors. And also the new generation of North Korean defectors who had different living experiences from the previous generation may have different types of career paths. However, many of the studies missed to review these young generation's features. They only discuss very general things about North Korean defectors' career paths, such as their educational achievement or employment outcomes with numeric data in general. So therefore, I conducted the in-depth study about new generation of North Korean defectors' career development phenomena with a different perspective. Then who is North Korean millennial defector? They are a very distinctive group. They do not have any personal memories about the first chief leader of North Korea, Kim Il-sung. So without any good memories under the Kim Il-sung era, they experienced a severe famine. So it made them to work at blank markets to survive, not following the government authorities. So they tend to have lower loyalty to the government than the previous generation. And also they enjoy the smuggled foreign media like a Hollywood movie and K-pop, so they already know about the outside of the world. And these characteristics make the North Korean millennials to be more active to find their life directions by themselves after they come to the South Korean society. And I set 3 research questions. The first one is, how do North Korean millennials learn and develop their careers within their daily lives in South Korea? And second, what challenges and structural barriers do they face as they develop their careers? And third, how do they react to these barriers and what do they learn in these activities? So for this study, I used the cultural historical activity theory as a theoretical framework. So it is kind of very complicated theory, so I will briefly explain about this theory. As you know, people learn and develop their careers through diverse activities within their daily lives. Like people can meet other people and they go to the school and they watch TV, reading books. Through this kind of daily activities influence their learning and developing careers. So cultural historical activity theory describes human learning and development occurring in everyday circumstances by using the concept of activity. So in chat, the cultural historical activity theory, the activity means what people collectively do under the cultural historical influence. I used ethnographic tools in a compressed time mode. I actually lived with a North Korean defector as a roommate for 3 months, and I met over 30 North Korean defectors every day, working as their teacher, mentor, friend, and researcher. So here is the research participants profile. There are 7 females and 4 males. And as you see, their current occupations are mostly the students. Oh, what is missing? Yeah, here. So as you see, the Taehwan, he was a factory worker, but at first he entered college, but he dropped out. And then he began to work as a factory worker. In Pyongsu's case, he already graduated college and he was seeking the jobs. In Hwayoung's case, she didn't take any academic education, and then she just took the vocational education after coming to the South Korea and worked as a part-timer. So to collect the data, I did a content analysis and participant observation based on my roommate's day-to-day routines and interviewed with the North Korean millennials. So here is a quick reminder of the research questions before moving on the findings. First, how do they learn and develop their careers within their daily lives in South Korea? And what challenges and structural barriers do they face? And how do they react to these barriers? And how do they learn in these activities? As the first findings of this research question, North Korean millennials develop their careers through education, participation, and self-development activities within their daily lives in South. So let's look at more details. And upon arrival into South Korea, all the North Korean defectors go to Hyewon. The Hyewon is the government-based educational institute for their first adjustment. So after leaving the Hyewon, all my research participants began to join in education activities. So among the research participants, 3 entered regular schools and 6 entered the alternative schools for North Korean defectors, and 1 took vocational training, and 1 prepared to school qualification exam like a GED by herself. So even though each North Korean millennial has different goals and reasons for participating in education, their actions converge in the same direction to get by in South Korea. In other words, they participated in education to live life like others in the South Korean society. One of my research participants, Eun-hee, mentioned that the reason she began to go to school is to live life like others in South Korea. So she mentioned that when I arrived in South Korea, I realized that everyone could study regardless of age. And then I realized that people lived very competitively, so I decided to study like others to survive, at least follow their life. Actually, South Korea is a credentialist and capitalism-centered society, unlike North Korea. The majority of adults in the South have advanced degrees, and diploma is one of the critical aspects to be employed in South Korean society. In actual, according to OECD data, over 70% of South Koreans aged between 25 to 34 years old have a college degree. So for the North Korean millennials who lost opportunities to study in their childhood, so earning diploma and finding their own financial resources through education are essential to develop their careers. The second activity of North Korean millennials to learn and develop their careers is self-development activity. At first, the North Korean millennials participated in education without significant forethought. They participated in education activities just to get buy-in and adjusted to South Korea. However, as time went on, they began to focus on self-development and seek practical career paths. They engaged in personal reflection, explored career directions, and some of them entered university and vocational trainings and went abroad to study. Why? Because they want to and need to advance their life qualities and career directions. One of the research participants, Ingyu, explained his experience to reflect his life and plan for the future. He said, I did not fall behind in classes. I'm a hard worker and I do my best. My main concern was always about getting higher test scores. After I came to the capitalism society, I became a capitalist whose main concern is about my own benefits. It's a little hard to say, but I followed the money like an idiot. One day, it came to my mind that I don't want to live like this, so I decided to go abroad. So the North Korean millennials took actions to improve their life quality and develop their career directions. Then, within these activities, what kind of barriers they faced? They faced a lot of obstacles stemming from different education system, lack of resources, and low competitiveness in South Korean society. The barriers I mentioned in this study is historically accumulating structural tensions within and between their activities. It is not a personal mistake or challenging. It is structural tensions. The first barrier the North Korean millennials face in their career development is different education system between the North and the South. In particular, English is the most challenging aspect the North Korean defectors faced. In North Korea, they use the original Korean languages. While in South Korea, English is required course even from elementary school, and people frequently use the English as their daily expressions. In actual, many courses in college in South Korea have English lectures, and sometimes it is required courses. So it leads challenges to follow the classes for the North Korean millennials who had never studied English before. So the Pyongsu mentioned that I could understand 10% of the lectures. And I felt like a lamb to the slayer when I go to English class. And different curricula between the North and the South discouraged the North Korean millennials and affected their self-esteem to study. And Ki-soon said, except for a mathematical formula, everything was totally different. So she had to study from the very beginning. And Chong-hae also very shocked and lost confidence when she first took the exam, because even though she studied very hard, but she received a poor grade. And overage classroom placement also caused challenges to develop careers of North Korean millennials. The North Korean education system are mostly collapsed, and the North Korean millennials experienced the education deprivation during living in the North and their transition period from the North to the South. So it is difficult for them to be placed in age-appropriate grade level in schools. So all my research participants who entered the regular schools in South were placed in lower grades with younger students. However, in Asian culture, the age is very important to build a relationship within each other. So over-age classroom placement causes stress in school, and North Korean millennials were uncomfortable to build a friendship with their younger peers. And one of my research participants even said that he felt shame when he was placed in younger students' classroom. And the most shocking part was that he even could not follow the younger students' learning level. And the second barrier North Korean millennials faced were lack of resources to understand the South Korean system. North Korean millennials grew up in the North Korean society where occupations were assigned rather than chosen. So they are not familiar with actively searching for information to set their career paths. Also, even though various supporting systems exist to help them, like the special college admission system for North Korean defectors and tuition waivers, the North Korean millennials often do not know how to find these resources. And almost everyone are the first generation students in South Korea. So there are no one who guides their career. They do not have sufficient scaffoldings to guide their own career paths. So here is a research participant's story. This story explains how North Korean millennials face challenges to plan and develop their career paths without sufficient resources to understand South Korean systems. The Ki-soon, she set her career direction to be a teacher and applied to universities through special admission systems for North Korean defectors. And she successfully received admission and entered a university. She believed the university degree guaranteed to make her to be a teacher. She didn't know about the process of being a teacher and the fact that her university does not provide a teacher education program. So to continue on her career paths, she transferred to another university to take teacher education in her junior year. But unfortunately, it was impossible to take a teacher education because juniors were not admitted to take the teacher education program. So the lack of information about South Korean higher education system discourages Ki-soon from achieving her career paths. But do you think it was from her fault? No, it is not from her ignorance or her personal mistake, but ultimately from the different social cultural backgrounds between her previous lifestyle in the North and the current living situation in the South to find their career paths. And the third one is low competitiveness in the South Korean competition system. In South Korea, the criteria of competition is already established, and North Korean millennials need to fulfill the standards for developing their careers. Even though they can receive admissions from university through the special admission systems, after entering the schools, they have to compete with others under the same criteria. However, North Korean millennials have never trained fiercely like South Korean students, and they are not familiar with the system of competition. So it makes the North Korean millennials unavoidably lag behind the South Korean peers. In actual, most of research participants who are college students mentioned that they feel fall behind the other South Korean students, and some of them have been considering taking a leave of absence or dropping out of schools. Here is an example. The English is one of the main factors South Korean people need to be qualified to find jobs. So there is a typical English test in South Korea, so-called TOEIC. So people have to apply, people have to have the TOEIC scores to apply for internship or jobs, even part-time jobs in South Korea. Also, many of the universities ask certain levels of TOEIC scores for their graduation requirement. However, for North Korean millennials, it is very hard to get higher scores in TOEIC testing. So Pyung-soo mentions that even though he can listen, speak, and read English, he can't get a good score on the exam because he lacks the test-taking skills like other South Koreans. Then how do they react to these obstacles and what do they learn in their career development activities? There are three main reactions that North Korean millennials showed. First, the North Korean millennials established strategies to resolve the challenges from different education systems. To overcome the difficulties from overage classroom placement, Jonghae's case, she created a school and took school qualification exams, and then skipped 2 years of schooling, and she finally entered the university with students her own age. And in Gyu's case, he transferred to an athletic special school from regular academic school because he thought that he could be more competitive physically and beat other younger students at the athletic school because he is physically matured than other younger students. And also, to overcome the lack of English proficiency, many of North Korean millennials spend a large amount of time and money to study English. So some of the research participants even went abroad to study English. So it is very aggressive and active actions to resolve the challenges they face in career development activities. So they set strategies to achieve their career goals by themselves, and they become active learners. And another reaction the North Korean millennials took to resolve the challenges is to find their new role to alleviate the hardship. North Korean millennials had new insights about the necessity of alleviating the hardship they repetitively met while living in the South. So they take actions to mitigate the challenges for the next new coming North Korean defector generations. And they begin to work as a scaffolding for the younger generations. And actually, they worked as a volunteer teacher at alternative schools for North Korean defectors and shared their experience in the South to others. And they provided practical information about South Korean systems to other younger generations. So they learned to consider the ways to advance the entire North Korean defector group's life and careers. And also, North Korean millennials try to use their distinctiveness as a competitiveness in career development. They converted their thought about the North Korean defector distinctiveness to one of their competitiveness in their career development. They use this distinctiveness as a person who were born and grew up in the North but live in the South in their careers. So here is the Ki-sun's continuing story. So after she failed to take teacher education program at the new school, she majored in Korean literature. And while she takes classes, she realized her distinctiveness as a South Korean coming from the North. So she perceived the differences in contemporary literature between the North and the South and considered the matter if once reunified, how can it teach literatures? So she set another career direction to develop an integrated curriculum for both the North and the South Korean literature education. So she thought that I am the only person who can do this. So she decided to study more about literature education and entered graduate school. In this process, she became more a confident and assertive person who developed her own life and career with competence. So from this study, I examined how North Korean millennials learn and develop their careers, what obstacles they face to develop careers in the South, and how they respond to these challenges. One key takeaway from this research is that North Korean millennials are active and independent learners. It is totally different from the current discussions about North Korean defectors, seeing them as a passive object to be adjusted to South Korean society. And North Korean millennials continually reflect on ways to develop their careers and actively establish their new identities and roles and set plans and goals for their future lives and careers, even with the wide consideration of the issues from the national level. Then, how can we better support the North Korean millennials' life and career development? To start, we need to legitimate their new roles, especially as the scaffoldings for the next generation. This should go beyond institutional aid or systems. It requires practical acceptance from themselves and others in South Korean society. Unfortunately, currently most career development activities for North Korean defectors are initiated by South Korean government or civic organizations, and North Korean defectors often being passive participants. It is crucial that we actively listen to their own voices and involve them in the decision-making process for their career development. And also, we need to acknowledge and accept the active, aggressive characteristics of North Korean millennials, in particular by empowering their desire to become bridge builders between the South and North as a distinctive individuals. We can provide a more effective and practical support for their life and career development. And this research has the potential to provide a valuable insight for underrepresented young adult learners seeking career guidance. And firstly, it is important to shift our perspectives when it comes to this group of individuals. We often view them as problematic and in need of support. However, as we see in North Korean millennials cases, it is very important that we start seeing them as active learners who are making huge efforts to survive in a fiercely competitive society. And also, we need to acknowledge and accept their diverse life experiences and circumstances. They may have had different experiences and may be living in unique situations. So rather than viewing this as a barrier, we should embrace and encourage their differences as a chance to find them their own distinctiveness. We know there are many barriers and obstacles in their way, and some barriers may not get resolved by themselves, and it could be impossible to be resolved with only their own efforts. Of course, I can't generalize the entire North Korean millennials' career development trajectories with these research findings. There are lots of young generation North Korean defectors still struggle to resolve their challenges. However, I believe this research could shed light on the young generation of North Korean defectors issues with different viewpoints. If we shift our perspectives and empower their potentials, we can help them to develop their life and careers. Yeah, now I will conclude my presentation, and thank you for listening. And if you have any questions and comments, you can send me email and we can discuss it a little. And if you want to know more about this study, you can check out my previous research articles. And thank you again.
All right. Thank you very much for a great presentation, Dr. Park. And actually, it was great time to understand about the North Korean defectors, even I'm the South Korean, but it was really great time. And then specifically for the millennials and their barriers in the South Korea. And actually, I believe this presentation and this research also reflect our goal and motivation of our committee, because like the equitable outcome from the first generation or underrepresented groups. So maybe we have a lot of, insight. We can get some good insight or experiences from your research. So then if you have any question, then please place your question on chat. Then, yeah, so that Dr. Park addressed all the questions. And then there's questions on the chat, then you can also respond that.
Okay, so I can check the question from Mohammed Masam. How do North Korean defectors cope with the trauma of leaving their country and the possibility of never seeing their loved one again? Yes, that is, I think, a biggest challenge, personal challenges for the North Korean defectors, of course. And in my entire research findings, there's one of the part of the North Korean defectors, their desire to see their loved one. When we think about the North Korean defectors, we have some bias to thinking that they might be very satisfied with the new life in South Korea. However, they missed a lot about their previous life in the North because there are lots of their loved one. So this kind of emotions make them to take actions for build the bridges between the North and the South. I mean, at first they just have some emotional behaviors like, I want to go back to North Korea. I missed my friend. I missed my previous life in my hometown. However, some of the North Korean millennials began to take some actions. I mean, to build the bridges to North and the South. They thought they should break some South Korean people's perceptions about the biased perspectives to see the North Korean defectors. They just begin to build their own network, the North Korean defectors network. But it is not just to relieve their missing feelings. They make their own community, and they needed to build the network to support each other, and they become like the scaffoldings to help each others, and they work as the bridge builders between the North and the South. I think it is a little bit different from the previous generations. The North Korean millennial generations, they take certain actions to relieve their missing feelings and take certain actions. And then it goes beyond just the personal levels to the national levels. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And there's another questions from Michelle.
Yes, what are your next steps with this research? Do you have plans to expand this work? Yes, of course, I am very interested in the underrepresented adult learners, and especially their career development and their identity reconstruction issues. So I am planning to writing the proposal about underrepresented learners, their career development, and especially there are several curriculums to help with their career paths, but there's some missing part to considering like the social, cultural, and historical backgrounds, just the general discussions. So I plan to research about the social, cultural, and historical background to conduct the underrepresented adult learners, career development, and the career directions.
Yep, there's one more question from the Vishnu.
Yes, how different is upbringing in North Korea and South Korea, and how does it impact education of North Korean defectors? Honestly, in the north, their education mostly collapsed. So many of them, most of them, do not have opportunity to get education. They just work for survival. They go to the black markets even from 5 years old to survive. So there's no education in the north. However, as you know, in South Korea is very fiercely competitive society, especially in education. And education is the most important part to be employed and to have this higher social status. So it is totally different between the South and the North. Yeah. Any other questions?
Actually, I have questions. I posted it under the chat.
We're the faculty, staff, students in the college. What will should be our main role in success of the underrepresented group in college? As I mentioned in this presentation, I think we needed to change it to change our perspective to see them. Sometimes of course, they needed some support. However, sometimes we put them into some kind of problematic the label, but we needed to encourage it. We needed to empower them as the learners. So they have their own power. They are independent learners. So we need to encourage them. So I want to. We accepted that their diverse experiences and their distinctiveness, and could help them use their distinctiveness, even though they are underrepresented learners. They have their own distinct experiences. So we should help them use their own distinctiveness as the source of their career development and finding their career directions.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I totally agree with you. And there's another questions.
Yeah, do North Korean defectors receive any support from the international community? As far as I know, there are some international community and nonprofit organizations to support the North Korean defectors. And of course, many of the organizations supported the North Korean people can escape the China and third countries. Any other comments or discussion questions? Yeah. So if you have any questions, just to send me an email, or you can check out my previous articles. It could help you broaden your understandings more.
Right. Thank you very much. And thank you again.
Thank you.
For that.
Thank you for your interesting work, Dr. Park. I have to go read your articles. I'm not as familiar, and this was really, I don't know, I think there's more that can be done here, and I'm curious to context as far as looking at other countries and if there will ever be any like comparative work, the North Korea, South Korea, and maybe looking at some other countries that have had a lot of, I guess trauma would be the word, or wars or angst, and see if there's some similarities too. But great research. Thank you again for sharing this work with us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me and having me a good opportunity sharing my research.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll go ahead and end it. If there's no other comments or questions, you are getting some accolades in the chat. So again, thank you and great work. We appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Yes, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.